Hello friends, welcome to Salesforce 𝐎𝑖𝑚atics video session 125. So basically in today's video, we will discuss like how we can bring the real-time data with, help of recipe. So first till now, I already explained to you that in Salesforce 𝐎𝑖𝑚atics, we don't bring the data real-time. We bring it close to real-time by the help of scheduling and everything that can be done. We can bring it close to real-time, but we cannot bring the real-time data. So now today we'll understand that in recipe, we have a functionality where, you can directly add the object and whatever changes or any new creation you make in that particular records automatically that flows into this Salesforce analytics. Okay, so let's go to this analytics studio, and maybe in this process I will also help you to understand how we can disconnect the object. Okay, so that's another thing which we can definitely check. So for example, I go to this connect tab, and here I have a few of the objects. For example, this opportunity line item, it's an object which is there in the sync, which was there by default. What I will do is, since as far as I can recall, I am not using this anywhere, in my data flow recipe, I will just disconnect this object. Okay. And we will bring the data real time. So I will just disconnect the object. As you can see, when you disconnect the object, you can't disconnect if it reference in a data flow or push data set recipe, if it's there in any data flow or any recipe, or so that way it won't work out fine. So that's the thing. Now I will disconnect because I know it is not there. You can't disconnect because it is used in okay, this is used in sales edge ELT workflow. Okay, so there's a workflow called sales you can't disconnect because it is used in sales edge ELT workflow. Okay, so maybe what I can do is I can quickly go to that sales ELT workflow. I think this is the one they are talking about, sales ELT. Okay, this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. Maybe what I can do is I can just remove that from here. Okay, this is the whole thing. So for now, I can just delete this data flow if needed. But again, I think I have to delete all the recipe as well, which is a bit problem. Opportunity line item is already there, which is fine. Okay, so fine. Okay. Let's see if I can just take any other objects. I think record type is also used over there. Let me check the record type maybe. Or let me check if we have anything. Okay, we have campaigns. Campaign is there. Maybe let me check if I can do something on campaigns. Not too sure. Okay, and I think the campaign probably is not added over here. Yeah, I don't see the campaign. Okay, so I will go to my create recipe. Okay, I think it will be free session. It will be free session 21. Now let me click on add input data, and here let me search with campaign. Yeah, so there's an object called campaign. Okay, so unfortunately there's a default data flow which I'm using. I have to delete that data flow maybe, then I can use it. But yeah, as of now, I think we can go with this campaign as well. So for example, I select an ID, I select a name, okay, and I select something like status, fine. ID, name, and status, and maybe type as well. Okay. And what I can do is I can click on next. Fine. So you see here you will have this location which is Salesforce, which is directly pulling from the Salesforce object, right? And now if I click on next, you will see the symbol. Till now, the symbol which you must have seen is something like this, right? So for example, if I open one of them, whenever you're pulling the account, because it's already there on sync, you see this kind of a more of a diamond shape kind of a thing, right? But here you see it's a cloud. It's a cloud image which is there, which means directly you're pulling the data. So that's the thing. And what happens when you, okay, I will explain that later. And now I will just go for an output node, and I will just write as campaign dataset, and I can go for recipe dataset, and here I can write campaign dataset as well. The app location will be recipe dataset, and click on apply. Okay, that's it. And now what I will do is I will just click on save and run. Okay, so let me name it as, I think we did till free session 20. We have till free session 20. Yeah, this will be free session 21. And let's click on save. And of course, we will now go to our monitor section. And we will monitor it. I think this ran successfully. And yeah, this got saved. Okay, let's check why it is not coming up. Sometimes when you pull directly the objects, it takes a bit of time to run in the first instance. That is also one more thing which you have to keep in mind. So yeah, let's check. Yeah, I think right now it's on the running stage, so we will monitor this. Okay. Okay, so this recipe ran successfully. Fine. And now what I'm going to do is I will just open the dataset very quickly. So it is something related to campaign. Let me search over here. Yeah, so this is my campaign dataset. And right now, if you see, I have 4 records over here, which is something I see in the data export as well, 4 records. And probably I have not created any record till on campaign, but maybe let me try it out. So let me go for all active campaigns, and I can see 4 of them, which is great. Now I will click on new. Okay. And maybe I can just write over here test campaign. Fine, I will just write over here test campaign and make it as active. Okay, and maybe the type I can make it as webinar, right? And status is like yeah, I think let us keep us land. Okay, and that's it. Maybe I can take the start date as 1st May and the end date as 30th May, and number sent in campaign, that is fine. Budgeted cost, maybe I can write 200. Actual cost I can write 500, which is fine, and I will click on save. So I created one more campaign, right, which I have named it as test campaign. Okay, something you can see over here. If I go for my all active campaigns, I can see the test campaign. Now, if you come to this recipe, you won't see that, right? In the recipe currently, I'm sorry, in the dataset, you currently don't see the test campaign. Okay. Now, earlier, what we used to create a record, and finally we used to run the sync. Okay. In this case, I just need to run the recipe. That's it. Okay. So maybe what I can do is for free session 21, I will just go to my recipe section and I will just run this. Okay. I don't need to save and run also. I will just go for run now. So after creating a new campaign record, I have just run the recipe. I didn't even run the sync. Okay. So as I told you, when you're pulling directly an object into the recipe, it takes some time. So let's see when it pops up. Yeah, I think it's on running stage. So we will monitor this right now. Finally, the recipe ran, and of course, it took a bit of time. But anyways, now what I will do is I will quickly move to this data set. I will refresh this data set. And now if I bring in the name, you see the test campaign also came up over here. Okay. So ideally what happens when you create any new records, or if some new records get inserted or updated, okay, what will happen is you have to run the sync and then you have to run the data layer. But in this case, even if you create a new field, for example, if I update this one, okay, so let's say I kind of update this to something like test campaign. Yeah, let me say I update this to test campaign 1, something like that. Okay, test campaign 1. Fine, and let me save it. Okay, so again, even if you update, you have to run the sync, but in this case I just have to ensure that I run the recipe. So as you can see, currently showing test campaign 1. After I run the recipe, basically it will show me the updated name. So I will go to my data flow and recipe, and I will just click on run now. Okay. So once I click on run now, I will go to the monitor section, and maybe once again, it will take some time to pop up to start that flow. Okay. Yeah, it started. So now we can monitor this. Fine. So now this recipe done successfully, and straight away, if I jump to the data set and if I bring in the name once again, you see automatically got updated to test campaign one, which has been reflected on the dataset also. Okay. So ideally what happens whenever you create any new records, if it is basically connected to sync layer, fine. So this is the sync layer, right, on the connect. So you always have to run this sync layer once. Okay. You always have to run this sync layer once, and then you have to run the recipe. Okay. Or even for that matter, the data flow as well. Fine. Where basically after that you can bring in close to, I mean, you can bring the real-time data, and by scheduling, so there's an option to schedule where you can bring the data close to real time. Fine. But what we have done is basically here on the recipe section, you have this criteria where you can directly pull in the object. Okay. And whatever changes you make, that will get updated. You just have to run the recipe, of course, once. So instead of, focusing on running the connect part. So that's the thing about this one. And one more thing is, like, in this manner, whenever you directly pull data from any Salesforce internal object, what happens is, if I, for example, the other recipe which we are talking about. So for example, on the data flow recipe, there was one of the recipe which we have built. Let's say I take up this one on the free session 5. Now here, whatever we have done, right, although this is like is coming up after establishing the connect. But if I deploy the same recipe right now, okay, let's say I deploy the same recipe in the higher version. I mean, in the higher environment. So from low environment, when I deploy the same recipe which you are seeing right now, because here, of course, we're bringing from the connect. If I deploy this to higher environment, and in that higher environment, if I don't set up the connect, so one keyword is, like, when you're deploying to higher environment, you always have to set up the connect, right? If you don't set up the connect, automatically it will directly pull in from your Salesforce object. That's a great thing. So that feature is always there. Like, you don't have to establish as a pre-deployment step of establishing the connection, putting the fields and everything. It can directly get deployed, okay, into production. So that is one beauty about this one, with that new feature, where if certain established connections here, it's already existing, because we already have certain default data. I mean, it's a pre Salesforce org, Salesforce CMRD org. So they definitely, they have already created some sample data flow for which that connection is already established. But when you work in real time projects, you always have to establish that connection in the connect. So if you don't establish it, if you deploy the same recipe, it will automatically come in this format, where it will be in the form of this cloud format, which means it's directly taking from that Salesforce Org. So that's it about this video. This video is all about how to ensure we can directly pull in the data and ensure that it works on real time. This is the way. Of course, by recipe, again, the scheduling has to be done. That is unfortunate. That has to be done. Cannot do much. But yeah, that is all about this video. So yeah, thank you. Let's meet very soon in the next one.